Hello. Glad to see we've got a full house tonight. I invite you all to think back with me. You're 9 years old. You're a third grader, and it's a big day for you. You're excited. And it's not because you've got those cool light-up shoes. It's because you're getting back your first test. No longer are you getting those check plus, or check minuses, or if you went to my school, it was PS and O's. You're getting a number grade, a grade out of 100. That means you're getting an A, B, C, D, or F. We know how it goes. So the day comes, and you finally get your test back. And you know what? It's an A. So you go home, and your mom and dad kiss you on the head and tell you how smart you are. Good for you. But what about the kid's test who looks like this? Yeah, like that. We know what to think about that kid. There's a certain stigma. That kid's stupid, they don't know what they're talking about, and they can probably not tell their left from their right. So from a young age, we learn to avoid being like that kid. We learn to avoid failure. And if you're like me, or most of the speakers today, you became that perfect little A student, the one who obsesses over little projects and tests and stays up late studying. You became that try-hard kid. And then you reached high school, and teachers started to tell you this. They told you, take a risk, which is interesting. They want us to be dynamic with our learning now, to not be afraid to fail, that one thing we feared most. However, that wasn't really the case. There's a teacher at our school who makes a point of a distinction between taught something and being learned something. In schools, we're taught that failure is okay, but we're learned that it's simply not an option. We're taught that we should take those risks to be dynamic. But what we're really told is that whatever we do, we can't fail. Now I want you to look at this picture and tell me how many boxes there are. 4. 4. Okay. So there's 4. There's 5, right? Yeah. Bad trick, I know. But for those of you who said 4, you're probably feeling pretty dumb. It's a bad feeling. I mean, not, okay. Calm down. It's a stupid trick, but it caused negative feelings because you were wrong. Inherently, we don't enjoy being wrong. All right. So why is it that we're told, and this is what leads us to be told that everyone can't be right, there's no such thing as being perfect, and you can't be 100% of the time. We know how that goes. But think to each and every one of you individually. Think about those ideas you hold closest to you. Think about what you thought when you thought that was 4, because I'm sure you did. In that moment, you knew you were right. And that's what's so interesting about failure. Up until the moment that you realized you fail, there's no difference between wrong and being right. And this is probably better illustrated through a story. A couple weeks ago, my friends and I had been playing a game of Pictionary. If you're not sure how that works, you draw a card, and it gives you a list of things that you're supposed to draw. In my case, I had to draw the Suez Canal. So my picture looked a bit like this. Now, I can tell by your reaction that you might not necessarily know what the Suez Canal is. In fact, that's the Suez Canal. So I drew it, and my partner looked at me, and he had no idea what I had done. Eventually, he guessed it correctly, which I have no idea how he did, but up until the moment when the clock ran out and he guessed, I believed that what I had drawn earlier was the Suez Canal. In my mind, what that thing was, it was the Suez Canal. I knew it. Inherently, to me, that was the Suez Canal. But then I realized that's actually the Suez Canal. Which brings me to my next point. When we fail, we're offended. It sucks to be wrong. That's because all the things that we believe, we hold very close to us. When we're wrong, it's offensive. But it shouldn't be that way. In schools, we're taught that failure is something that's negative. It shouldn't be, but this is not the way that things should be carried out. It shouldn't be something that we toss aside and disregard. It's something that we should act like never happened. Like, failure is something that we can just turn a blind eye to. A couple years ago, my dad had came to me and he said, "Son, I want to go hiking. Let's go hiking on the Appalachian Trail." So we did, and we hiked. He plotted it out. We were at the trailhead, and we set off. You know, gonna do the whole father-son thing. Go hiking, identify constellations, I don't know. And so the sun starts setting, and we're about at our 18th mile. And we realize that we've overestimated our ability, because we've still got a mile to go, and daylight's running out. Eventually we get to the campsite, just as the sun's gone beyond the horizon, and we set up camp. We have a cold dinner, and then we settle in for a restless night. I wake up the next morning not to the sounds of birds chirping or a deer nuzzling at my face, but instead to the sounds of my mom honking the car horn. Some point in the night, my dad had called her and said to pick us up. So we drove home, and it was in relative silence. And after that, my dad never attempted a hiking trip like that, which is unfortunate. What had happened is we'd failed, but we'd failed at failing. Instead of taking that experience and learning from it, we just wrote it off. We tossed it aside. And I began wondering where we got that idea. Sure, it wasn't just schools, but it's certainly something that's enforced, which is unfortunate, and is incredibly paradoxical, failure paradox. Trying too hard. Okay. What happens is schools tell us to be dynamic and take risks. Schools are systems designed to educate us, to expand the way we think. But we don't acknowledge one of the greatest teachers, which is failure. I had failed at identifying the Suez Canal, and I'm never going to forget what it actually is now. Those of you who said 4, it's 5 squares. So why is it that we don't identify failure? All of society's great innovations, the great steps that we've taken forward, have been made possible, whether it's pottery, metallurgy, fire, planes, trains, art, literature. It was made possible because people failed. And it wasn't minuscule failures. Some of these were massive. Some of them were great, and some were destructive. But they failed. And failure is so important because it forces us to step back and assess what went wrong. Ask how we can get better and how we can grow from this. Sure, success is the ultimate goal, and it's indeed much more glamorous, but it's impossible without failure. At our school, we have a habit of hosting pizza parties for whatever homeroom fundraises the most or collects the most carrots. That's just great. I mean, who doesn't like doing that? But what if instead of celebrating who could collect the most carrots, we celebrated who failed the greatest? What if you sat in a classroom and a teacher said, "I'll throw a pizza party for the kid who can go out and fail. The kid who fails so terribly that the way they think is completely rewritten, that their mind is blown by their failure, that their entire concept of reality has been rewritten." That'd be something much more great, because it'd force us, or it'd encourage us, to step outside our comfort zones. To go, try something new, and even if it goes wrong, you still get some pizza. This would be great not only for the local pizzerias, but for a generation as a whole, because it would create a generation of kids comfortable with failure, not a generation of kids scared of it. And so I leave you with the challenge. Each one of you should go out and fail. I don't care how it's done, how terribly, where it is, or when, just as long as you do it. Step outside your comfort zone. Do something new and dynamic, and I'm sure you'll get a memorable experience from it. So go out and fail. Thank you.